Costa Verde, Central America. World-class assassin Yuki, infamously known as Lady Death, is in a high-rise apartment preparing to carry out a hit. Her target is Costa Verde Trade Minister Diaz, who is set to sign a trade agreement with the United States which would lift the embargo on the country. Yuki plants evidence around the apartment before readying herself. As Diaz is about to take the stage to give his speech, Yuki shoots him with a sniper rifle. We then see CIA agent John Franklin reassuring the defense secretary that they will find the culprit. Agent Juliet Clover has managed to ID the culprit as MARSOC scout sniper Brandon Beckett, and Franklin orders a CIA ops team to his house immediately and to consider Brandon armed and dangerous. Meanwhile, Brandon is at home playing Call of Duty, trolling a kid about how bad he is at the game. Outside, Yuki arrives on a bike to take him out, but before she can act, the CIA ops team barges into Brandon's home through the front door and takes him into custody. She sees them lead Brandon away and contacts her employer, who is angry as he wanted Brandon taken out and made to look like self-harm. He knows Brandon will be transported to a CIA black site and plans to send a team to take out the convoy and make it look like they're working with Brandon. Brandon is first taken to a CIA safe house where Agent Franklin comes to interrogate him. He accuses Brandon of assassinating Diaz, noting the evidence they have against him. He assumes that Brandon may have wanted to get revenge for a mission his father Tom, a former sniper, was on that went bad in the past, but Brandon has no idea what he is talking about or that anyone was assassinated. Just then, Homeland Security agent Zeke Rosenberg enters the room, demanding to speak with Brandon as he was given permission from the higher-ups. Zeke makes it clear he plans to treat Brandon fairly until he takes a careful look at the evidence himself. He knows Brandon will be moved to the CIA black site soon, and if he is innocent, people may come to tie up their loose ends. Franklin has Brandon moved, and he tells Zeke that he is in charge, but Zeke reminds him he has his orders soon. We then see Russian gangster Vasily Petrov receive an order for a hit, and he demands his money up front before he mobilizes his team. Zeke goes to meet Clover as she was the one who ID'd Brandon and found his intel. The two go over the video from the assassination, and Clover was able to locate the point the shot was taken, which is over a mile away, and only someone with Brandon's skill set could have taken the shot. Zeke then sees a photo of Novosil Pharmaceutical CEO Donald South sitting with Costa Verde politicians on the day of the assassination and plans to look into it further. Brandon is led to a truck by CIA agents, and they set off toward the black site. Meanwhile, Vasily and his men arm themselves and set out in two trucks. At the same time, Yuki is already at the hit point, with orders to supervise the hit and tie up any loose ends. After a while, Brandon notices a truck closing in quickly from behind. Before he can warn the agents, a second truck suddenly blocks their path. They try to back up but get rammed by the truck behind them. The gunmen then begin unloading on the car. But the agents are able to return fire. The agents manage to kill two of the gunmen with Yuki watching the entire thing go down. One agent gets the jump on one of the men, but he is killed by Yuki. Vasily kills the agent next to Brandon, and he and another gunman advance on the truck, but Brandon manages to free himself and shoot them both. He climbs into the front seat, and Yuki takes a shot at him but misses. One gunman staggers to his feet, grabs a grenade launcher, and fires on Brandon as he speeds away from the scene. Pissed off, Yuki kills the last gunman with a shot to the head. In California, Zeke has tracked Donald to a restaurant where he is with his secretary. Zeke interrupts their dinner and demands that Donald talk to him for his own good. Zeke mentions the name Diaz and wants to know his involvement with the Costa Verde government, which would allow him to be on stage with them. Donald explains that he is simply an advocate for the embargo lift and was a close friend of Diaz. His company would not have benefited from Diaz's death as the trade agreement would have seen their stocks soar, as they were set to merge with Ficus Industries, another pharmaceutical company that had a monopoly in Costa Verde. Donald hints to Zeke that Ficus may have been involved, telling him to follow the money. Franklin learns about the attack on the transport and the sniper and now believes Brandon is working with his father and the Russian mob. Franklin marks Tom a priority and orders the team to track Brandon, who is now on foot after dumping the truck in Aberdeen. Brandon gets to a parking lot and is about to jumpstart a car when he is apprehended by two cops who hold him at gunpoint. As the cops try to arrest him, Brandon attacks them both and easily knocks them down before grabbing a gun and hijacking a nearby car and telling the young man to drive. Zeke contacts Clover, who tells him about the attack on Brandon's transport and the dead contractors, but Zeke believes that Brandon may have been set up. He had her look into Ficus, where she found they had a security breach where an employee tripped an alarm, but the cops were refused entry by the head of security. Zeke wants to look into this and learns the employee's name, Josh Strayhorn. Brandon has the young man drive him almost to the middle of nowhere before telling him to get out and walk, throwing him an apple to keep his energy up. Zeke arrives at Ficus headquarters where he meets the head of security, Drake Phoenix. He asks about Josh but learns he is at home sick. Zeke explains that Josh could be involved in an assassination, and Drake thinks the idea is absurd and laughs, but Zeke is serious. He asks about the security breach, and Drake explains that a drunk Josh left his pass at the office and mistakenly accessed a secured floor trying to retrieve it. Zeke doesn't believe a word but leaves, planning to stay in touch. Franklin learns about the parking lot hijacking and thinks they can easily track the car, but Brandon has already dumped the car and hitched a ride with a moving truck to Montana. Zeke calls Clover. He is outside Josh's apartment where he is at home sick, but Zeke wants her to look into Drake. Clover soon finds out that Drake has a blank past after 5 years ago. Franklin overhears the conversation and demands that Zeke speak directly to him next time and Clover focus on finding Brandon. He leaves, and Clover tells Zeke that Vasily has survived the shooting and is at the hospital. Zeke immediately shows up there and wants Vasily woken up. The doctors refuse as he is just out of surgery, but Zeke flashes his gun to scare the doctor. Brandon is walking through the woods in Montana when Tom appears behind him, startling him. Tom can see he is stressed, and Brandon tells him he is in trouble. Vasily wakes with Zeke standing over him. Zeke demands to know who hired him, pressing his gun into Vasily's wound. Vasily screams in pain until he reveals he never got a name and only heard a helicopter in the background when he got the mission. That night, Brandon and Tom are at the cabin talking about the battle scars they have accumulated over the years. Tom recalls one scar that will never leave him. It was in Vietnam when he was deployed with his team to assassinate a tax collector. His partner went crazy and charged in alone but was soon held at gunpoint by their target. Tom was given the order to shoot and took his shot but was forced to take out his partner as well. Franklin and his team are scouring Brandon's apartment when they find a card from Tom with coordinates and decide to investigate. Zeke also enters the apartment and decides to stay behind. He begins to check around until he sees an army photo of Brandon and his team and takes a photo. He sends the photo to Clover, and the man behind Brandon turns out to be Drake. His real name is Clark McConnell, a former sergeant who was wanted for war crimes but was declared dead. The following day, Tom and Brandon are chopping wood when Tom asks about his mother. He apologizes for being away and explains he always tried reaching out to Brandon when he was younger. Brandon recalls his mother telling him she turned down Tom's proposal 3 times, and Tom admits to this but still thinks he should have done more for Brandon. Brandon doesn't think it's all bad, as he got his shooting skills from Tom. At Ficus, Zeke confronts Josh in the parking lot. He mentions Diaz and demands to know who he works for and his connection to Drake. Zeke pulls his gun, and a scared Josh explains that Drake forced him and even threatened to hurt his family. Zeke eases the pressure, and Josh adds that Drake came to him with an idea to steal millions from the merger with Novasil. If the trade agreement failed, Novasil's stock would fluctuate, which would make it easy for any accountant to steal pennies off every dollar. Josh refused to take part, but Drake threatened his wife. The night he tripped the alarm was the night he was setting up an offshore account for Drake. Brandon and Tom are at the cabin as a team of CIA contractors approach. They unknowingly trip a silent alarm, and Tom spots them approaching. Watching the body cam of the team is John, who reminds them to proceed with caution. Tom hands Brandon a rifle and shows him a secret tunnel that will lead him to the perimeter of the compound. Zeke calls to speak with Franklin, telling him about the confession and to pick up Josh, who will reveal the truth. Tom steps out to face the ops team, ready to surrender, but Franklin gives the order to stand down. Suddenly, 2 agents are killed by sniper fire, and Brandon, who had exited the tunnel, races back to the cabin. Tom ducks back into the cabin and uses a mirror to try and locate the sniper's position, watching as another agent is taken out. Brandon gets back to the cabin to see the last agent get taken out. He heads to a nearby tower where he takes up his sniper position. Both Tom and Brandon spot each other and begin scanning for the shooter. The sniper is none other than Yuki, who is perfectly camouflaged. She has Tom in her sights, who soon reveals Brandon's location to her on purpose, leaving her in a sticky situation. If she fires on either one of them, her position will be exposed to the other. There is a stalemate until Yuki gets a devious idea. She sees a dead agent still holding his gun and hits it, causing it to fire and allowing her to escape in the distraction. Brandon regroups with Tom, and they plan to flank the shooter at a nearby river and take him in alive to clear Brandon's name. Father and son begin stalking Yuki through the woods. Yuki has Brandon in her sights, but Tom shoots her gun. Brandon charges at her and realizes she is a woman. The two then begin to fight. Yuki is fast, but Brandon uses his strength and power to fight back until Yuki slices him with a blade. Brandon doesn't back down and puts up a good fight, but Yuki is too fast. Just before she can shoot him, Tom holds her at gunpoint, forcing her to stand down. Zeke goes to Drake's home looking for him but sees no one. He calls a contact to disarm Drake's security alarm and breaks into the home. He begins to look around and gets upstairs. There, in a drawer, he locates a key and a safe in the closet, but the key doesn't fit. He is about to shoot the safe when he notices the bed has been moved. He finds another safe hidden in the bed frame, which the key opens, and inside he finds a passport with Drake's photo but Brandon's name. He also finds multiple receipts for a water taxi in Dunbury, California. Brandon uses a dead agent's body cam to reach out to Franklin, showing him a captured Yuki. Franklin wants them to come in and reveals he has a second team making their way to pick them up. Clover is able to ID Yuki, noting she is an accomplished assassin. Franklin then orders his team to find a connection between Diaz and Yuki. The CIA ops team soon arrives at the cabin and takes everyone into custody. Zeke tracks down the water taxi from the receipts and learns that the captain services 3 islands around the area. He then notices a helicopter pass overhead and learns which of the islands has a helipad and asks the captain to take him there. At the safe house, Franklin confirms that Yuki was Diaz's assassin and she confessed that Drake hired her. He apologizes to Brandon, who notes he was just doing his job. Clover then explains the situation to Brandon and shows him Drake's photo, and he recognizes him as Clark. Yuki is being transported by an ops team to a black site, but Brandon thinks she can be used to draw out Drake. Brandon explains how brutal he is, as he watched him take out an innocent woman and burn down her store, but he supposedly died just after Brandon went to report him. Brandon now thinks trying to frame him was Drake's way of getting revenge. They then come up with a plan, and Yuki is returned to the safe house. Meanwhile, Drake is on his island, unaware that Zeke is sneaking in the shadows. Brandon demands that Yuki call Drake to deliver Brandon and request payment, but Yuki wants full immunity. Franklin agrees, but she needs to follow through with her part of the deal. They cautiously remove her cuffs and hand her a cell phone. She makes the call, and Drake demands to know if Brandon is dead. Yuki tells him she has done enough killing without any payment and will deliver Brandon to him alive once she gets her money. Drake demands his death, but Yuki is adamant, so he relents and gives her an address. Drake then notices Zeke snooping outside. Franklin plans to give Yuki an empty gun and Brandon breakaway cuffs and a loaded clip if he needs it. They also need a sniper, and Tom volunteers. Franklin tells him he's retired, but Tom refuses to allow Brandon to be used as bait without his watchful eyes. Brandon and the team move out and soon get to the address where Tom sets up his sniper position. Zeke makes it inside the home when he realizes that the house belongs to Donald. Drake then tackles him through the glass window, and the two begin to fight. Drake puts down a beating on Zeke, who tries using a broken bottle, but it's no use. Drake attempts to drown him in the pool, but Donald stops him, revealing they are working together. Drake wants to kill him right away, but Donald offers Zeke the chance to work with him in exchange for his life. He explains he planned and spearheaded the merger but realized he would not be CEO of the new company. Knowing this, he planned to squeeze as much out as he could. Zeke calls him a murderer, but Donald tells him Diaz was corrupt and everyone else was simply collateral. Just then, there is a buzz at the gate, and Donald leaves the room. It is Brandon and Yuki, and they enter through the gate. Brandon asks about her connection with Drake and learns she was hired to kill Drake's brother, but his nephew got killed instead. Due to her code as a pro, she became indebted to Drake. Drake meets the two at the front, but he is very suspicious of them and tells them to come inside. Realizing the two are going in, Franklin orders the ops team on standby to move in and extract Brandon. Drake sees the ops team and shoots Yuki, but Brandon attacks him. Drake overpowers him and manages to take him hostage, and Tom is unable to get a clean shot on Drake. Yuki recovers and stumbles upon a bound Zeke, who begs her to untie him so he can help. Drake demands a chopper and $10 million, or Brandon dies. Franklin wants Tom to take a shot, but he has flashbacks of the war and has a panic attack. Brandon tells him to forget the past and to do what he has to do as he trusts his dad. Tom composes himself and lines the shot up, skillfully hitting Drake in the head, killing him. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief and prepares to clean up. Donald tries escaping the building but is ambushed by Yuki and knocked out. Both Donald and Yuki are arrested, and Brandon thanks Zeke for believing in him from the get-go. He goes to reunite with his father, who notes that was the hardest shot of his career. The two embrace, and Brandon tells him he never doubted him.